Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode on SAP Advanced Fiori training along with SAP Fiori Launchpad and security concepts. In the last episode, we talked about basics of Node.js. We saw what is Node.js and how can we utilize Node.js to create our first web server. In today's class, we will go ahead and discuss about this tiny little icon which you can see here called Grunt.js. So you can see this icon over here. This is the Grunt.js icon. Looks like a angry pig. This is what we will be going and looking into it in the system. Let us go ahead. Before we talk about Grunt.js, the motivation behind Grunt.js and what is that Grunt.js is actually doing here, what is the solution it is providing, which problem it is catering to the need of a developer. So before we move on, let's understand a couple of important questions which you may have asked me in the past in my last training. Also, you might have asked me or thought about these questions in the past. What are all these questions? So let's go back and try to write down a couple of important questions which might have come in your mind or you might have seen it, but you're afraid to ask these questions by far. The first question, in a typical Fiori app, we have variety of files inside our project, be it an XML file, be it a fragments, controllers, formatter, etc., etc. Majority of these files are in form of XML and JavaScript. So in any project, we have so many of these files which are present. When we start our Fiori application, all these files are downloaded from the server to the browser, right? This is what happens whenever you start a Fiori application. All the files which you see, which are part of your project, be it a JavaScript file, XML file, your views, your controllers, all these artifacts, all these objects are downloaded. Why they are downloaded? Because we are doing client-side JavaScript over here. In the client-side JavaScript, all the JavaScript code has to be executed in the browser. Hence, entire set of code is downloaded into the browser. Now, when it comes to downloading these files, so browser will download all these files individually. Yes. So when browser download these files individually, it takes a while for each of these files to get downloaded. So total loading time, or I would say total booting time for your app, I'm talking about custom Fiori app, is equals to sum of individual file loading time, isn't it? So this is what is the total time taken to load the custom Fiori app. Suppose you have a Fiori app, you have controller, you have view, you have XML, and these are all the files you have. You have JavaScript files, controllers.js, you have XML, views, you have formatters, your fragments, your component.js. These are all the files you have. And in order to load these files individually in the browser would take a little while. And the total loading time of all these files will be equal to loading time of individual file. For example, controller.js, there are 3 controller.js, each is taking 3 milliseconds to download. Then there are 3 views, for example, each is taking, let's say, 2 milliseconds to download. Then you have formatter, which is taking, let's say, 5 milliseconds in total, and then your component.js, which is taking 10 milliseconds. So what is the total time of your app? It is 3 into 3, 9, plus 3 into 2, 6, plus 5, plus 10. So total time for your app loading will be 15 plus 21, 21 plus 9, 30 millisecond will be the total time to load your app, isn't it, guys? This will be the loading time for your Fiori application. Now the question comes, Anubhav, can we do something? What do we do? Many of you have come to me, Anubhav. I am happy with the training which you have given me in the first course. Very well, I'm able to develop and deliver the objects to my company. But they are asking to improve the performance of my Fiori application. They are saying, can you improve the performance, the initial loading time with Launchpad, your Fiori app? Is it possible? Yeah, very valid question. This is the problem statement number one. So problem statement here is there something we can do in order to load all the resources of the project faster, right? This is the very first problem statement I would like to give away to you. How can you do that? This is problem number one. Let's understand the problem. We'll look at the solution later. Until you understand the problem, you can't do the solution, right, guys? So first important aspect is to understand the solution. Problem, and then we will look at the solution. The second, another important question which many of you have asked me in the past. I remember you were sending an email also asking me. This question was also the most asked question after my learning series video. The second important question to all of you, which you have asked me, you might have seen it also. Anubhav, when I run a Fiori app which is deployed in my Launchpad or in my SAP Cloud Platform Launchpad, I get an error in console. The error says component-preload.js is missing, right? Have you seen this error, guys? Component-preload.js is missing. Have you seen this error, many of you? Have you seen this error? क्यों आता है? कभी पूछा है? Did you ever ask yourself why is that error coming and what is this component-preload.js? What is this, gentleman? What is it doing? What is the purpose of this guy, right? You might have asked yourself this question, even to me as well in the past, and I simply ignored it. Yes, because there is a reason. The reason is I cannot explain everything in just a minute, in just an email. It's important for me now to explain this concept. Now, one thing you can understand, why am I putting both these questions here, is because they are related. There is a relation. Anything in this world which happens for a reason. There is a reason for that, guys. Okay, anything in this world happens for a reason. The reason is there is some relation between these two things. Now your mind is started thinking, oh, there is a relation. What is that relation could be? So the relation could be, maybe this is helping me to speed up the loading of my app. Yes, maybe. And if you are thinking in that direction, you're right. But how, guys? So there are two problems when it comes to resources. There are two big problems when it comes to resources, the loading time of your app. The first problem is each JavaScript file has lots of CRLF, carriage return, and line breaks, isn't it? If you go to any JavaScript file of our project, you will identify and find out that we have lots of carriage returns and lots of spaces, right? So if I go to the Fiori app, you can see here my new Fiori app, and in this, when I go to controller, you will see each Fiori file has lots of carriage return and lots of line breaks. So you see, this is a line break, this is a line break, yeah, this is a line break. So lots of line breaks are there, and lots of enter press are there. Like when you press enter, it brings a new line. So this is called carriage return. Enter keyword, enter key is also known as carriage return. So carriage return, line breaks are there. Lots of things are like there in your application, isn't it? This is all what we have. So to load this file now, the browser would take a while. When you want to run this and load this app now, browser will take a while. Let's deploy quickly this new Fiori app which we have created the other day into Fiori Launchpad. Now those who don't know how this Fiori app is created, how it was initially designed, I would request you to please go and subscribe my training on onlinefiorytrainings.com. You can go there and then you can subscribe my first training, which is basic fundamentals or foundation for any SAP UI5 Fiori developer. This is the module I would recommend. This is your learning path. Anybody want to learn development, end-to-end development for UI5 Fiori, this is the starting point. If you have not done this starting point, you may be missing out on something. You may be missing out on something. There are many things which we discussed in detail in this particular course. Writing every single line of code, no copy paste of code. Never learn from trainers who are teaching you copy paste. Okay, so this is the first module, and then you are equipped for this advanced level training. In this training then we will discuss more advanced topics. Okay, let's come back. So now what I'm going to happen is you found out that every file is big. It has lots of carriage returns, it has lots of line breaks, and then it also becomes more difficult or more time consuming to load such a big file for browser, right? So this is the third problem. Each file which you see, you have point 1 lots of files, point 3 each file has many line breaks and carriage returns. Yeah, because of these carriage returns and line break, what happens is individual file will also take more time to load. Let's have a quick look at how it is loading, how our app is getting loaded in the browser when we run them. So first let's quickly deploy this app in our Fiori Launchpad in SAP Cloud Platform. Right click on that and say just I would like to deploy my application on SAP Cloud Platform. Let's click on that. And now I can just give my credentials and I say deploy. Now it started deploying my application in SAP Cloud Platform. And then once the deployment is done, I'm just going to go and execute and going to run my application over there. So I say register to the Fiori Launchpad, please, in the cloud platform. And now I can give some description. This is my Fiori app from course 1. And I say select this and say next. And give some title. I would request you to please mute your line. Now let's give a title here. So I can say my fruit store. This is our demo scenario which we are taking. And I can say order or health today. That's a slogan for my fruit store. And then I can say next and just simple default catalog and default group I want to add this style into and say finish. You'll see it's registering now my app done. And let's go to the Fiori Launchpad site. I click on that. It opens SAP Fiori Launchpad into the SAP Cloud Platform where I would be able to see my app. Oops, I see some old app, but I don't see the newly created app over here right now. You can do that. Just click on this user icon, App Finder, and now you can see the fruit store, order a healthy today, and just pin this particular app to the home. And now you will see this on the home page. But watch out, press F12 and watch out here in the sources, sorry, in the network tab. It will now load. It will now load. It will now load. What will it load? What will it load, guys? It will load every single resource which you are using in the app as and when it is required. So it'll load your component.js, it'll load your manifest, it'll load your controller, it'll load your formatter, it will load your fragment, it'll load your XML view, it'll load every single resource which you have. It's going to load that. Now click on that and you will see the loading has started. And you can see it's loading individual files over here to launch your application. So now you see it has loaded fruits JSON, it has loaded metadata, it has loaded this app view XML, app controller, view1 view XML, view1 controller, formatter.js, component.js. It has loaded manifest.json. You see manifest.json, this gentleman over here, and you see the time taken to load your app is also coming here. The time, each individual file, how much time it is taking. Let's quickly take a rough idea of how much time this app is, our resources are taking as a rough idea. So let's take it an idea. So component.js, how much time it took? It took about 418. So let me just close this. So let's see, you can note down, you can see it here. Component.js, 162 milliseconds it took. So I'm just going to add this 162 plus model.js took 157 plus 159 milliseconds. Manifest took, and just a rough idea, guys. And then we have our app view, which took 170 milliseconds. Then we have our app controller, which took about 217, and then we have a view one, took about 168, 170, 174 is the formatter which it took. So all in all, the initial loading took about this much for our application resources. You all agree? This is in milliseconds, so you can just divide it by 1,000. 1374. So 1.37 second in total it took to load our app. Is that clear, everybody? How much time your application resources took to load? 1.37 milliseconds. Clear, everybody? This is the reference time we have noted down now. This is the time your app took. And now suppose it's a big Fiori app which you built. Here it's a demo scenario. Yes, it's a good Fiori app actually in our case, but it's not that big even. Right now I don't have an OData connectivity at this point. But let's imagine you have a Fiori app like this, which is typically master detail of work list. It took about 1.37 seconds to load your application resources. This is what we are targeting. This is what we want to minimize. This is our goal. This is how we should improve the performance. Your application resources should not take time. That's a problem statement one. Is that clear to everybody? The first problem statement. Is that clear, everyone? The problem statement in loading your application resource. The first problem. The second problem, look at the console. System gives you an error message somewhere here saying that it cannot find a component-preload.js, right? This is the another message which it is giving. This is problem statement number 2, which I noted down in the PPT. Do you all agree to both the problem statements now? So what do we do? What do we do, guys, to solve now these two problem statements? Yeah. One is the total loading time for all the resources required to run the app. And second would be this error message what we are by default getting when we are launching our app in the launchpad. Okay. What do we do? That's where the concept comes called minifying and concatenation. So what do we typically do, guys? Each of the file which you see it here, we are just first thing which you are going to do, each of this file we are going to remove the carriage return and we are going to remove all the spaces. Yeah, so in each of the file which you see here, we will remove all the carriage returns and spaces. This is called minifying. Okay, we are minifying. The first step what we are doing, we will minify our files. So we will say controller hyphen dbg dot js. Okay, we can call it a dbg. This is UI5 style of writing it. Okay, so controller hyphen dbg dot js, I can minify the file. The entire code I can remove all the lines, all the spaces. But do you think this activity of minifying would you do manually? Would you go here and then start minifying it? So just create a copy of app controller, paste it again here, and this time I'll name it as app hyphen dbg dot controller dot js. I can go there, and now in this file I am going to remove all the spaces. Yeah, so let's remove all the spaces. This is what I am doing, guys. Okay, so would you do this manually? Everyone, do you think this activity which you're doing and remove all the commented code, then would you do this activity manually? And likewise, this activity for every file will you do manually? Anyone? What do you think makes sense or not to do minification manually for every single file, making a copy of the file, making -dbg and minifying it? Does it make sense? No, no. To do this manually, there has to be some way which can do this automatically, correct? That is what the Grunt does. Grunt is actually capable of doing this with the help of something called Grunt plugin. So first thing is minifying the file, removing all the carriage returns and line breaks. So what is the first step to improve the performance? Minify the file, which will reduce the file size. Clear, everybody? This is step number one. Once this has been minified, the step number two is we can club all of these files in one file. Yes, guys, club all of these files, every single file which you have it here, club all of this in a single file, and that file is actually your component-preload.js. Is that clear, everybody? What is component-preload.js? And now tell me, guys, how many files you have to load to be able to run your app? How many files you have to load to be able to run your app? You just have to load this single file, which is all the files concatenated together in a minified form. This is the only file you got to load from the server to be able to run your Fiori app. What do you think will be runtime? What do you think will be effort to load this single file, rather than calling the server point one, calling server multiple times for each file? You are calling it one time, and in this one single shot this whole file is getting loaded. That's an amazing concept to improve the performance of your app. And if you need debugging, in that case you can further load these debug resources. If you need debugging to be done, then only you load these resources. Otherwise you don't. To run the app from end user point, see, end user will never debug your Fiori app. They don't care what code are you loading. What they care is performance. They just care about whether the performance of the loading or the loading time is less or not. This is what end user care actually. They don't care what you have. You have component controller, component.js. They don't even know. They don't even care. Yeah. What they care is how much time your app is taking to load. And that's what now we're reducing significant performance improvement with the help of just creating one single file, which is a minified and concatenated version of all the resources, project resources together. And what happens at runtime when you load your app from Fiori Launchpad, SAP Fiori Launchpad will look forward for component preload.js file always. If it finds, it loads, and rest all is done. Yeah. So this way we can significantly reduce the loading time of your app. Is this concept clear to everybody? What is that we got to do to load our app resources faster? Point one, what is component preload.js and how to get rid of unnecessarily added carriage returns and line breaks? All these problem statements are clear to you or not? Are all these problems, at least the concept wise, the solution, technical solution, we'll look it into the system in a minute, but is this statement, this problem statement and the solution, is the solution clear to everybody? What is that is doing? Such an amazing technology. And now we will go to the system, use our Node.js knowledge to be able to achieve this task automatically. You don't have to manually do these steps. You don't have to manually remove all the carriage returns and make your files, and then you don't have to manually concatenate. That's no more required. You can just right click right now, delete it. We don't need this. This can be done automatically. automatically. Now another interesting thing wanted to tell you, many time we worked in our last course, if you remember in our last course, the UI5 Fiori development, do you remember jQuery? Have you remember jQuery? When it was loading jQuery in the browser, have you seen many times when you're loading some reusable files, system will say jQuery dot jQuery hyphen min dot js. Have you seen this hyphen min dot js? Have you seen this, guys? Hyphen min dot js in some files. Many times you load a file, you load a reusable JavaScript file. System says jQuery hyphen min dot js. Yeah, data hyphen min dot js. What is it? What is it? This is nothing but it's a minified version of that particular JavaScript file. That particular JavaScript file, all the carriage returns and line breaks were removed, and there is a short version. There's a small version which has all these unnecessary code and spaces and things have been removed from the JavaScript file, and to actually speed up the loading of your file in the browser. Hope you are clear now with this main concept. Next time you see the loading of your app, if you are loading all the files, while you're loading, watch out, you will see hyphen min.js. That is because it's a minified version to speed up the booting, to speed up the loading of the resources in the browser. Is that clear? Many concepts, one amazing concept, and inside that many small concepts over here. If this theory part is clear to all of you, let me go ahead and show you what are the steps to use Grunt to automate this task of minifying our file content, and then we will get into SAP Web IDE full stack, and then we will go ahead and create our build using Grunt. So what is the typical flow? The typical flow is typically you have a Fiori project which has all the files. Okay. Now, where do you store your project files? Where do you store your code? Your code is actually stored in the Git repository, isn't it? In the Git repository, you are storing the code. And then what you do is you are going to use something called a build process. What is the build process? So you will say build my app for deployment. This is what I want to deploy. System will then create a specialized folder within the Fiori project. We call it as distribution folder for delivering the Fiori app to actual end user, to the actual deployment purpose. Distribution folder is created. Automatically this will be created when you do a build of the Fiori app. We call it as, in short form, distribution folder. In this distribution folder you will have all the resources, all the files, everything, plus you will also have all the debug resources. All the file hyphen or the JavaScript file will have file hyphen debug.js for debugging purpose. If it is needed, only then download them. And then it will also have a component-preload.js, sorry. And this is the distribution folder which will be used for final deployment of your app to your SAP Fiori, SAP ABAP system, or be it in Fiori Launchpad in SAP Cloud Platform. So this will be your final file, your final release or final patch of the app which will go to the system. This is the packet you're going to deploy. It has all the hyphen debug resources and component-preload.js, and this gets deployed, registered to the launchpad. When the launchpad launches your app, it checks first if you have this file. If yes, just load this file, ignore rest all. Then if user request or front-end developer request for debugging, then these additional resources gets downloaded later point of time for debugging purpose, for ease of use. This is non-minified versions of all the files. Okay, or probably the minified non-concatenated minified versions of individual files will be getting downloaded in your local browser if requested. So this is the whole process. Your code is stored in real-time project in Git repository. You check in, check out, multiple developers work together with it. Once you guys finalize that now we have a logical close of our development, you do a build. The build will generate a distribution folder. This is the folder which has all these files which gets created. And how do you do this build? This build is an automated task. This build is not a manual work. It's done automatically using Grunt. So we will do automation. Automate, it doesn't mean testing. Automate also mean anything which is automatically done. Okay, the whole world is doing automation in every single thing these days. What is machine learning? Machine learning is kind of also an automation, right? It's also an automation, intelligent automation, right? That's what machine learning is. So automate is a very important step. Every industry, every single project is trying to achieve more and more automation, removing repetitive manual tasks. Okay, what is automate? Automate is removing repetitives manual task. This is what automation is, right? All the repetitive tasks which you have, like in this case, every time you want to deploy, you got to remove spaces, you got to remove line breaks, then create debug.js, and then concatenate these to create component preload. This is the work which manually was done earlier, and now thanks to Grunt, it allows me to do this activity automatically, isn't it? Automatically this will be done. We'll see it in our next section, how to create the necessary files to be able to create this and automate this process, and then we do a build process using SAP Web IDE full stack, and then it will create a dist folder, and then when you deploy it, system will deploy it automatically, entire dist folder to the application and to the ABAP layer or your SAP layer, and then finally when you load, you will realize that you have significantly got an improvement in performance. Clear, everyone? Is that concept clear? So let us go ahead with Node.js. Those who are not comfortable what is Node.js, please watch my YouTube video on basics of Node.js. So you can go to my YouTube channel, Anubhav's YouTube channel, and then you can find out here uh, 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 a tutorial on Node.js. So you can search for also Node.js Anubhav. This is a basic tutorial on YouTube. However, in this training which we are covering, I have already covered yesterday the details, the basic details which you all should know, how to get started with Node.js development, what is Node.js development, all that we have started, guys. This is what we have all learned it in the last class. So please subscribe to my training if you want to understand more. Okay, this is what you can do. So now this is one YouTube video either you can see to understand Node.js, or you can also subscribe to my training. In my training, I've covered the Node.js already in the last class. Let's come back and now let's see how can we achieve this. So we have already the Node.js. So I've got it now here. Now let's take an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add my project over here. So I'm just going to add my project over here. So first of all, this is my atom.io. In the atom.io, I'm going to get my project. So let's download this project, which we have here. So this is the Fiori app new. I'm just going to export this project. And I can just say show folder. So first we'll see what is Grunt. How does the Grunt work? So let's understand what is Grunt.js. It's like a bull icon, which I showed you at the beginning of the course, angry bull. This is how it looks like. So what is first of all a task runner? Okay, a task runner is nothing but this is actually the Grunt. Grunt is a task runner. A task runner is actually a way to automate your tasks. Something which is repetitive task, you can automate with the help of task runner. So the purpose of task runner is to perform repetitive manual tasks. This is what it can do. What it is capable of? It is capable of automating the manual steps, like minifying the files, concatenating files, yeah, creating build folder every time before we deploy, Example, it can also do minification of resources like jQuery.js to jQuery-min.js. This is what it is capable of. Clear, everyone? This is what task runner is capable of. Examples. And now there are two popular tasks. There are many of them, but there are two popular task runner. One is called Grunt, and second one is also very popular in market, which people use. It's called Gulp. These are task runners. Okay, these are task runners. Example of some tools which are task runners are Grunt and Gulp. Grunt is very popular in industry, also used by SAP UI5, along with SAP UI5. That is the reason we will use Grunt in this particular course. Now, let us go ahead and see how can we use SAP Web IDE full stack to be able to perform the Grunt builds, the Grunt based builds. So during the build process, system is going to minify, uglify all your JavaScript contents, your CSS content, your XML view content, club all of them together in a single component-preload.js file. This is what the build process will do, and for that SAP has delivered a Grunt task for us. We have to just load that Grunt npm task, and then we just have to do a build process using SAP Web IDE. Okay, this is what we have to do. So let's come back to Web IDE full stack, and here I'm going to use the Grunt plugin. So guys, what is that a Grunt will look forward for? So first thing, you have to add package.json, right? You have to add a package.json, and you have to also add a Grunt file. So these are all two important things. So Grunt will look forward for those two things actually in your application. So very first thing which we are going to now do, we are going to add a package.json file. So let's create a package.json file. Okay, so let's do that. So typically it should be created in the Fiori app new folder. So I'm just going to create new, and I'm going to say create a package.json. Just do that. This is my package.json. You can generate this package.json if you have Node installed in your system, like I taught you just now. You can generate this using the code, like we did it also in the last class. We have generated the package.json over here. So I'm just going to quickly use this package.json, copy that, and just bring in over here in Web IDE. So to understand this whole thing, you have to subscribe to my course so that you will understand what is package.json, what is node.js, all these things. You need to subscribe to my course to be able to do that. And now over here in the dependencies, you can see right now it's putting these dependencies. We don't need them. SAP offers a predefined tasks, a predefined dependency for creating Grunt build. Okay, you have to just use that. So come back, remove all these. We don't need these things. We just need one dependency provided by SAP @SAP/grunt -SAP UI5 -best practice -build. This is one dependency which SAP has provided us. So I'm just going to put its version. I have read this from the documentation, and that's my package.json. So we created package.json now here. The next thing which Grunt will look forward for is actually something called Grunt file. So let's create that as well. So right click and say new file, and I say Grunt file.js. In this file now we are going to register the Grunt task. So module.exports, and let's write down first the best practice for use restrict, and then we say Grunt. Of course, this is a function which will receive the Grunt object, and then I say load npm tasks. And what is my task name? Is this one. This is my plugin name, and same is my task name. And now let's register the task. and you can put a default task, and in the bracket there are 3 subtasks inside which all will be executed. Clean, it will clean the folder, it will lint, just do a pretty printer on the content, and then it will do a build. So JS lint checks will be also conducted on your code. That's what system will do for us. And now we are done. The grunt is configured. We are configured for the Grunt build now. 2 files you have to create as part of your Web IDE project, which we have done it now. You want to understand detail of this Grunt file. You want to understand detail about package.json. Everything you want to understand, please subscribe to my course. In my last section of this particular video, I have showed what is component preload, what is minification, what is uglification, what is concatenation, what is a plugin, how do you get the plugin information, how do you install Grunt command line interface. All that was explained in my last section of the video. So please subscribe to my course to get the details. Right now I'm just showcasing the feature directly in the Web IDE here. So let me right click on the web new folder now, right click and say now we are ready to do a quick build, guys. Yeah, so we are going to do a build. Where is this build option? I don't see it right now. Let me just refresh my Web IDE. We should get a build option, guys. Okay, so it will now check the grunt file.js as part of my project. It finds a package.json also. I can right click now, and voila, you can see now a build option over here because it finds a grunt file. Okay, it finds a grunt file for me, and now I can see a build option, but oops, I don't get anything. Let me just right click and see it here. I don't see a build option. We should be able to do it. It should be able to do the build. So the reason why I am unable to load the grunt task is now because what system is doing, it is first doing a clean of directory, and then it is doing a lint check. Okay, it's checking my project. It's a best practice build. So it's checking all the files which I have in my Fiori project, and it's making sure if everything is neat and clean. There is no syntax error. There is no problematic statement in my code. And as long as there is no problem in my code, system then only will allow me to do the build. So what I have to do, I have to check the problem. So you can right click and see no build option here right now. Just go back and click on this console, this problems view, and now you see, guys, all the problems which are there in your current project. So you see there is a problem in my fragment. I can go there, and you see there's a custom control which I've used. I think I should remove that quickly. Just do that. And this one also I'll remove. This namespace also I'll remove quickly. This is not needed. I save it. You see 2 errors are gone. Let's check manifest JSON. This property is not allowed. Just remove that. Then this one, here we have an issue. There is no property called type text for search field here. I just remove. You see all the errors are gone now. So we have removed all the errors, and now let's right click, and now let's see, do we get this option? I just quickly reload my Web IDE. Another reason why am I not getting this option for build is the package.json file name p must be small. It's in capital letter. Let's rename this up and just put small p, rename it. Let's just rename it, and there you go, it got renamed. Right click now and do the build, and voila, you see the option to do the build, guys. This was one small catch which I've got it. I was unable to catch this very small mistake which I've done, and now you see its option. So good, we learned from our mistake. That's always better when we not copy paste the code. If I copy pasted this, then I wouldn't have got this issue, and in real time when I'm stuck with similar problem, I will never be able to solve. Now you know the reason. P was capital, that's why it's not working. I can right click now, say build. Let's build the project. What do you expect? You would expect a dist folder will get created for you, which has your Component-preload.js. Let's build it up. And now you see a dist folder is created. You see on the top the build started. You can also open the console up here. In this console, you will now see the status of the build. What is it doing? It's retrieving the source code, preparing the node environment, Node environment is ready, installing the node dependencies, all the dev dependencies, especially the SAP delivered Grunt plugin. Then it will just read all through these things, and it will try to do the build. So in the build, basically it will minify all the JavaScript files with adding a -dbg.js extension, and then it will also concatenate everything together and build your component-preload.js file. So once the build is complete, you will be able to see that particular file into the dist folder. Okay, so let's see what is it doing. So you can always monitor the status in the console. This console option comes up from here, from the right side. And then you would see the system will just complete this build in a minute or so. It first time takes a little bit of time. Next time it won't take. And now you see it's invoking, and you see grunt lint task, lint JS task, lint XML task is just minifying and cleaning up and doing every single step for all your XML files and everything. And voila, now the build is complete successfully. You can go to the dist folder and you see everything. Your entire project structure is replicated again here. Inside the controller, you see for every controller a dbg file is created for debug purpose. Yes. And now the star of the day, component-preload.js. It has everything. It's a minified, concatenated version of every single resource which your project has, including all XML views and JavaScript files. You want to search something, you want to search .app view, Control F, search for app.view.xml. There you go. You can see your app view XML. App controller you want to search, Control F, app.controller.js. ये देखिए, this is, here it is. So it has got everything clubbed in. Now guys, can you tell me what is that Fiori launchpad would need? What is that your Fiori launchpad would need? Would your Fiori launchpad need to load each individual file now? No guys, Fiori launchpad does not need to now load individual file. Entire project can be loaded with just one component preload.js. That's going to give you significant performance boost. Watch out. Let's save this. Let's deploy this. And now the dist folder gets deployed to the app, not the content here. It will deploy everything. Let's say deploy to my Fiori launchpad in cloud platform. And just right click. The version should be increased to 1.0.1. Deploy this. Now the build is again triggered. You see it's again building it up, again deploying it up. Now everything will be deployed, and this time the dist folder will be used for deployment, and it will deploy the component preload.js. Earlier when you were loading the app guys, you were getting an error, isn't it? You were getting an error, component preload.js not found. That error will go away. Second thing, it will now not load individual resources. Last time it was loading individual resources. They are no more required. You remember the time it took? 1.37 seconds it took total, just on a rough estimate, your individual resources to load. I did not count here in this JSON file, your fruits.json. So I think let's add that as well. So maybe another half a second. So 1.87 seconds it was total taking to load the dependent files, including your just component.js, your JavaScript file for controllers, and your views. Okay, it was taking. Now see, still it is deploying. It is taking first time little bit of time. Once the deployment is done, let's also open the active version of the app. And now let's see, press F12. Watch out guys, what happens now. Go to the sources, network tab, and you see it is loading things up here. Just go on the top, and we should see component preload.js got loaded guys. You see, do you see any .js file anymore? You don't see any XML or JS file individually getting loaded. So no back and forth communication between server multiple times. One single component preload.js, which has everything inside built in. And you see the total time it took is 199 millisecond. Do you see guys, what is the time component preload.js took? 199 millisecond. What was the earlier time? Anybody? What was the earlier time when individual resources were loaded? What was the earlier time? This was in seconds. 1833 milliseconds got reduced down to 199 milliseconds. How much performance improvement it is in the loading of the app. That's the magic Grunt.js build is doing for you guys. Component-preload.js, Grunt.js based build with SAP Fiori, SAP UI5, Web IDE, full stack in SAP Cloud Platform. Do you see a clear advantage, clear improvement in the performance? So next time your end user complains to you about loading of your Fiori application is slow, you know what you got to do, guys. Clear, everybody? Are you clear how much improvement it is? 199 divided by 1877. 199 00 1877. It is 90% improvement, guys. 10% left over, so 100 minus 10, 90% improvement in performance, guys. 90% improvement in performance. That's a big game changer for you. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel this video is helpful for you and your colleagues, please do share this video with all your friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for all your efforts putting and understanding this concept with me. Please do like, subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this. You will be getting notified automatically once you subscribe to this channel. If you want to get more deep into the course, please don't hesitate to subscribe to my course on SAP UI5 and Fiori development, SAP ABAP on HANA with S4HANA technical modules, and also probably on SAP Fiori Launchpad and Advanced Fiori training on WebIDE full stack. This is Anubhav Oberoi signing out. Thank you so much. See you again. Goodbye.